Hi there, welcome to this build of a 48-inch wingspan Tomboy Senior. Now, if you've been watching the videos up to this point, you'll know that we've finished all the construction that we need to do with this aircraft, and we've got the tailplane and fin and the wings covered. Now, in the last video I said that the next video, so this one, I'd be covering the fuselage and fitting the windows and windscreen. Well, I've decided that when I'm doing the covering of the fuselage, I really want to be able to concentrate on that and devote enough time to it, video time to it. And as I don't want to make these videos too long, I'm just going to be working on the windscreen and windows today, and I'm going to leave the covering for the next video, so I can, as I said, devote enough time to each of them in the video. So today I'm going to be creating or building, making a custom windscreen that fits really nice, and I don't want to be making it loose and sloppy so that oil can seep in, because the Mills diesel engine that we're going to have on the front here is going to be chucking oil and unburnt fuel back at this windscreen. We've got the holes around the dowels for the elastic bands, and we've got the joint around the bottom that could be potential areas of ingress for oil. So I really want to make this windscreen fit as tight and as nice as I can before I glue it on. So I'll show you what I've been doing so far, and how we're going to get on with this really nice custom windscreen. Right, well, this is how far I've got at the moment. And what I started off with was the template that came with the plans for the Tomboy Senior. And I cut out pieces where the dowels needed to go, and I just fit that round as best as possible, concentrating mainly on this join around the bottom here, or this edge here. I've then marked on where it's a little bit too big, and similarly you can see through there's a little bit that needs to come off, so that fits flush onto there. This wasn't quite long enough, and so I've just stuck on a piece here to make that longer, and I've drawn round the top where that needs to be trimmed. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a bit of a Frankenstein approach to build this up as best I can. I've got another piece here, so I'm building this up as best as I can to make a single windscreen that will fit. And again, I've got a piece here, and that will go over there like that, and I'll just put a bit of tape on, and what will come out with this is a single piece of paper that we can use as a template. So again, just stick that on, and that needs to be trimmed just a little bit there. And now I think more or less we have a template for a windscreen. Now we won't be able to get this off because these being splayed out. What I'm going to need to do is just put a little bit of a slit coming up there. I'll do that in a minute more carefully so I don't mark the balsa, and then that can be taken off. And again, when I make a plastic windscreen to put on there, I'm going to need to put a cut in one of those, or possibly both of those, to allow them to go over the dowels. But I've tried to cut these holes as neat as possible around the dowels, so it's a really good seal. I want this to seal really, really well because of the fuel and the oil that's going to come this way. To do these holes in the paper, and also I've got some test holes here which you can perhaps see in this plastic. I don't know whether that shows up. Does it show up against the dark surface better? And I've just drilled those in on my bench drill with a nice quality 5mm drill, and these dowels are 5mm, which I was surprised it came out so neat. So I'm going to take off this now, and then we'll have that one template, and I will cut it and then draw around on a piece of paper so we have a good quality template. Right, well, I've now got this off, and I just had to put a slit in it so that we could get it off the dowels, like I said. And I've trimmed off the excess that needs to come off, and now we've got a really nice fitting windscreen, and I feel quite pleased with it. And I think that will provide a really good seal on there, particularly now we did this upstand in the previous video. We added a bit of balsa there. Now I've also copied this out onto another bit of paper, so I've got kind of a template, a master copy if you like, and I'm going to cut this out and see how that fits, just to make sure I can make another one and it all looks good, and then I'll have a go at producing one out of plastic, and that might be slightly harder to fit, but we'll see how we get on. Right, well, there we go. That's my custom made paper windscreen. I will put a slit in the top, and I'll put a couple of pieces of tape on this so that we can fix it to the plane once we've wrapped it round, and we'll see how this fits and whether it needs any modification. And if it works fine, then it looks like we'll be making one out of plastic. So let's ease that over there, and there we go. Right. Now this hole is a little bit, oh no, that's okay, I think. There, I think that fits okay. I think the hole is very, very slightly off on this side, which is causing just a little bit of a wrinkle there. I'd probably just trim that very slightly with the scalpel, and it looks like it needs just a tad more on that side. I don't know whether I can adjust that, but I think we are almost there. No, it does just need a little bit on that side, but I think that's looking pretty good, and I think I'm going to have a go at making one now out of plastic and see how that works out. I might use a bit of scrap plastic first, so and then save the good plastic till later. Right, well, I've now got a plastic version that fits really, really nicely, and I think that will glue down lovely and produce quite a good seal. The hole is really tight here on that dowel. On here I had to adjust it, it's not quite, I had to drill it out a little bit more. I don't know whether that shows, but this windscreen isn't particularly good quality because it's got little dimples in it. But what I need to do now is get some plastic and make a top copy, and to transfer everything I've learned here about the dowels, because this actually fits different to how the paper version fit, because I think it doesn't pull in quite as tightly, so I've had to trim it a little bit around the bottom, and as I said, I've had to adjust that hole. So it's well worth doing a template, if you like, out of plastic, and now we can make a top copy. Right, well, I've now got my top copy, my acetate top copy, and this, just to say what I've used, it's the thickness is what, 0.25 mil, and this is actually acetate from a bound book cover. So, but it's good. It's fairly heat resistant. We'll have a look at that in a minute, and it's quite nice and flexible, but stiff enough to do the job. So if I fit this, nice tight fit on that dowel as before. We've got the slot, or well, not a slot, a slit cut above that dowel so we can slip it over. Fits nicely around here, could perhaps be trimmed just a little bit on that top edge, but it fits really nice around the bottom of the dash here on this upstand that we put in. So that is a really nice fit. You can see nice fit that side, and on this side same again, nice fit. Comes down perhaps a little bit lower on this side, but you know, I think I'll leave that because it's not going to show. I'm going to bring the covering material up to this edge here, and so you will see a little bit of a line, but it'll just give that more purchase, more to glue onto. Now the biggest issue with this was getting those holes in the right place, and I had a few goes. I think I'd shown you some of them where I'd messed about trying to get that hole just right, and so that is the biggest issue, because if not, it's either too tight or it's too baggy on this front edge. But that is really good. I'm so pleased how that's worked out. It's taken time, a little bit of time, but that's fine. So if I take this off now, there's just a couple of other things I want to talk about. Actually, before I take that off, what I need to do is fuel proof these dowels, because they're just bare wood at the moment. And what I'm thinking I'm going to do is, once I've got the windscreen glued on and fitted, I'm going to fuel proof these and let a little bit of the fuel proofing or epoxy go around the edge of the windscreen there, and that will help not only stick it in place, but it will fuel proof the dowels. This is a little bit of dowel and plastic I just glued on with epoxy, and that is really strong. I was quite surprised how strong that was. So that's what I'm going to do once we've got the windscreen in place. One of the very last things to do. I'm going to be sticking the canopy or the windscreen on using this Formula 560, which is a Zap canopy glue or Pacer canopy glue. I think Zap do it now. I'm not totally sure, but that's what I'm going to be using. It sticks quite well to this acetate and to the balsa. I've done a few kind of tests, so I've just it does come off if you pull it hard enough, but it does stick really quite firm, which I'm pleased about. You can see this is black here. The inside of the canopy I'm going to be painting black, and I'm going to paint it just beyond the edges to where the covering is going to go. Now, I tested the covering, and at 100 degrees C, the covering that I'm going to use sticks really well onto this acetate. You can pull it off, but it takes some doing, and actually you can see there it's ripped the film. So that sticks on really well at 100 degrees C, and it doesn't deform the plastic. If you leave the iron on too long, it put a very slight wave in it, but if you just put it on nice and quickly, it sticks really strong and doesn't affect the plastic. So that's really useful to know. So I'm going to paint inside of here black. I'm going to be using the covering film right up to the very edge. Now the black that I'm using, it's just from a DIY store. This is from B&Q in the UK, and it's literally black emulsion paint, and this is a tester pot, and I've used this before. Sometimes I've fuel proofed over it, and it's really good. It's not fuel proof, so if fuel seeps in here it probably won't be good, but hopefully we'll have a nice tight seal. And the last thing I'm going to say is that when we've got this when we've got this windscreen around here, we also need to put on a piece of windscreen here, or a piece of acrylic here, and I have cut out a template somewhere which seems to have disappeared. Yeah, I've cut out a paper template for that anyway, and just been thinking about the join here and how I do that. Do I join them both halfway? Do I put one to there and then bring the other one and overlap it? And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a little bit of balsa here like this, just to thicken that beam up. Just move that paint. Just to thicken that beam up there, and that will give me a little bit more for this to come halfway, and then a little bit more for the window this way to come halfway. So it will just widen up that attachment point, and I think that will be fine. So I think what I need to do now is I need to stick these on, give this a paint, and then I need to finish this fuselage. I need to sand it and get it absolutely perfect, ready for covering, before I then stick the windows and windscreen on. Don't want to be doing the windscreen and windows and then have to sand it. It just doesn't make sense. And then we can fuel proof. Okay, quick update. I've just finished painting this. It's still wet, but I need to wait for it to dry obviously before I can do anything else. I've done inside the front cockpit and inside this section here, and essentially I've done anything that you'll be able to see through the side windows, and also right down to the servo tray at the bottom. I just thought it might make it look a little bit neater. And here's my window template, which window will just fit over there, and as I said earlier, put the windows and the windscreen in first, and then we can cover up nice and neat around that and a bit of film up there, so it looks really sweet and really fuel tight. Just a quick shot before I fit these windows. You can see the bead of epoxy I've put around there now and around the dowels, and that will just help to make that fuel proof there, to stop the fuel seeping under. I'm sure with time it will do. And I'm going to be putting the covering material right up and onto that bead. Well, I've now got it finished, and this fuselage is ready to be covered. I've got all of the black nicely painted. I think I said earlier, anything that's basically visible through those side windows. I've got the epoxy around here just to make a good seal and around the dowels, and I've got the side windows glued in. I'll be honest with you, I would like to have done the side windows a little bit better. I had some of the glue just drip down or come down a little bit. I put just a little bit too much on. But to be honest, once I get the covering on and the wings on, it's not going to show. But it would have been nicer to be just that little bit less glue. But I'm dead excited now, because we're really on the last chapter with this, and we're going to get this finished. So the next video is definitely going to be covering the fuselage, and I think I've actually got the design sorted, which will complement the wings and the tail. So I hope you found this useful and interesting, putting these windows and windscreen in, and I hope you'll come back and see how we get on in covering this lovely fuselage. So thanks very much for watching.